Andy Farrell has done a brilliant job with Ireland. I think you could look
How are
back
they going to
at the
get
World
it
Cup
done, Alan? You know, we can break down the whole game, you know, defence, attack, scrum, line out, you know, their pods, everything in attack. But which way do you see
well,
Ireland winning this game and how?
if I was a player here, Stuart, or if Matt was a coach, if you focus everything in your whole structure and your plan on South Africa, well, then you're going away from your own strengths. You have to be aware and conscious of it's going to be physical, number one. It's going to be in your face. They're going to try and push you off the scrum. They're going to try and maul you. The Irish players, this won't be a shock or a fright to them. I think in some ways what happened in the Bulls game for Leinster will be a good thing because it'll make them more determined and more conscious and aware. And I think there was probably a little bit of damage done by Leinster losing that Champions Cup final anyway. I think it had psychological damage for them. And I don't know if they were at the level emotionally they needed to be for a URC semi-final. Them not being in a final, it'll actually benefit them. They've got a weekend off, a little bit more time to rest, recuperate. They'll know what's coming here. And what do Ireland do? They've got to play their own game as best they can. So you have to do the fundamentals and be very conscious that they've got to get their scrum right. So there's a massive onus on, that Irish front row of Porter, Sheehan and Furlong, who we think will start. Can they get that scrum right? You know, Joe McCarthy and Tyke Byrne will be in the second row. It'll probably be O'Mahony, Doris and Van der Fleer. That eight of forwards have got to start the game well. And they caused South Africa problems at the breakdown in that pool game in the World Cup. That's a plus from can they replicate that again? But they've got a little bit of old school. You've got to go toe-to-toe here and be physical and go in really hard and continuously do that. So, and then try and play their game. We think Craig Casey has started 9. That's what's coming out. That would indicate that Ireland are going to play. He can kick, of course, and box kick. Jack Crowley can kick for position. He did so brilliantly for Munster in those 2 games in April against the Bulls and the Lions. Munster's kicking game was outstanding, to be fair. It was outstanding last year in that final against the Stormers. So, of course, Ireland are going to kick themselves. But I think Ireland's biggest strength in the last few years is their ability to keep the ball, stress defences, and get to multi-phase. And that's what you hope that they can do, play their own game to their best ability. Because if Ireland are thinking here, and I'm saying this as a player, I don't know what Matt thinks as a coach, if you're going to South Africa to contain a South African team, it's the wrong mentality for me. Of course, that's multi-layered, that word containment, because you don't want to play crazy rugby either because they put so much pressure on you. And if you start playing out of your own 22 every single time, you know, Jesse Creel, Colby, these guys are shoot out of the line. If they make a tackle, they turn you over. It's 3 points from Pollard. So you don't want to do that. I'm not saying that I think there's obviously going to be a fair bit of kicking in the game because you want to play it territorial. But when Ireland get the opportunity, I think they've got to be brave and attack and hope that they can at least get parity. But if, parity isn't something you should aim for, it's dominance you should aim for, even though it mightn't be the most realistic goal. You've got to set your standards high. Joe McCarthy, he's incredibly physical. He's someone who's new, who's come into the team, the Six Nations. He's got to get his hands in the ball, make some big tackles.
I think we might have just
tackles and get imposed themselves as well. So, yes, of course, Ireland have got to get a lot of stuff right. But going back to your original question, do they try and contain this team and sit back and keep it tight? No, I think they got to be brave and try and move the ball and attack as well.
Matt, a final one on this because we must move quickly on to Australia. Ireland got a wee bit of joy in that World Cup game, which they won on the edge, as Quinny said. They got into their shape and certainly hurt South Africa a couple of times out wide. Is that how you see them going at this? And is that where they will get joy if they can beat that rush defence?
Stu, I think you're 100% correct in your observation. And I'd take you back 2 steps before that. Ireland have had success. The game plans they've had against South Africa have worked. So that should give, and that's pretty much not the same 15, and we've got to say no Johnny Sexton. But this Irish team know how to play against South Africa. They know how to rattle South Africa like no other team in the world at the moment. So that's a plus for them. Second part is they've got to win their line-out ball. So Alan spoke about the scrum, absolutely 100%. But remember the line-out. Ireland turned over a number of line-outs early on, and then South Africa missed kicks. Now, if you turn over your line-outs early on, Pollard playing, he's not going to miss those penalty kicks. So you've got to win your line-out, because that's when you get your penalty kick to touch, that gives you position, and then that line-out gives you possession. If you don't win that possession, you can't stress this South African defence. You can't bring into play your tactics that have been successful against them. So they've got to secure their own possession. That sounds basic, but winning lineouts against this great South African team, you know, you got with Steph, Estebes and Montserrat as defending lineout players. They are close to the best defending lineout in the world. They are fantastic defensive lineout players. So we've got to win that lineout, and then we can get into that structure. The last bit of that one is our two young halves, two really good young men. I hope they do exceptionally well. But there's a lot of responsibility, as there is in every game with your halves, for them to not only general the side, pass and play well, they've got to kick immaculately at altitude, because it is Ireland's short passing game and moving the ball that creates fast ruck ball and then creates fast attack. But it's also Ireland's short kicking game, kicking to the fringes, kicking behind, that has really rattled the South Africans. So you've got to get the set play, scrum, line out, has to improve. And it was great, but it fell apart. It didn't fall apart, but it deteriorated a little bit there at times. So Paul O'Connell's got a lot of work to do. And then it's the young halves generaling the side and kicking with accuracy. And I hate to say it, because I want him to kick 100%. You know, Jack's got to kick really well for the sticks. You can't miss goals at altitude. And if they can, but this team is capable of doing that. There is no reason why we should doubt this Irish side can win, except they're up against world champions who will probably have more energy. So I think it's going to come down to, does the side have the energy to implement, the Irish side have the energy to implement a game plan that they know works?